Yes, we're live. All right, we are learning the laws of Birkat Hamazon. Birkat Hamazon, we're all familiar with. It's grace after meals. It's what we do after we've had a bread meal. Okay, we are going to try and understand the laws. Okay, if you look in source number 1, I'm not going to go through it in too much detail. If you look at the last pasuk there, pasuk Yud, verse 10, it says, "Ve'achalta v'savata uverachta." You shall eat, you shall be full, satiated, and then you will bless the Lord your God on the land, on the good land which I have given to you. Okay, so we see here that verse. What is the bless? That is the deoraita. That is the Torah level law for doing Birkat Hamazon. Okay, so we see here this is the only beracha in the Torah. That's it. The only bracha that we have in the Torah. Birkat Hamazon is mideoraita, a Torah level law. The Ramban writes, just as I said, V'rabotenu kiblu shezo mitzvat aseh. This is a positive mitzvah. V'ta'amo v'utvarech et Hashem Elokecha. And what is the meaning of the word is, and you shall bless the Lord your God. Okay, that language of you shall bless your Lord your God, that is similar to, and you shall make a roof on your fence, and all these, you should make a fence around your roof. All these types of things are telling us, I'll get there, but these are all the different things. You can see I'm a little hyper. Okay, turning over, source number 3, the Rambam also says that this is a positive mitzvah. Okay, that you need to bless him after every eating. By the way, he says eating, he takes it for granted that any decent meal will be with bread. Okay, don't take our common, our current practice where we don't like to have bread meals. Until very recently, any real meal had bread. Okay, it's evident from the Ramban and the Rambam that the biblical mitzvah entails reciting Birkat Hamazon specifically after eating and being satisfied, and not prior to eating, which is only rabbinic. So that bracha of Hamotzi, that bracha of washing my hands of like a dime, is rabbinic, but the Birkat Hamazon, that is deoraita. Rav Meir Simcha HaKohen of Dvinsk explains the reason for this in his Meshech Chochmah. You can have a look at that on your own. Moving on, turning the page, 129. I'm going quick. We're in it. Source number 5. I told you this would be fun. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis taught in a Braita, Seder Birkat Hamazon Kachi. This is how we do Birkat Hamazon. Bracha Rishona. What's the first bracha? Birkat Hamazon. Shnia, Birkat Haaretz. Shlishit, Bonei Yerushalayim. Revi'it, Hatov V'Hametiv. Now, okay, there's 4 separate brachot. How many of these brachot are midoraita? How many of these are Torah? How many of these are rabbinic? What say you? What say you? Which of these are rabbinic? Which of these are Torah?
Only one is Torah.
Which one?
First one.
Hazan Takol, because it was done by?
It's based on the verse in the Torah.
Okay.
Moshe, yeah.
Oh, you want to go with, okay, because that's V'achalta v'savata v'rachta.
Yeah, it's in the Torah. So.
You could say that. That's not the way the Gemara darshans it, though,
Yeah.
Mark. It's a nice Gemara. I like it, but it's wrong. Nice, but wrong.
Right.
So here, let's say how the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis taught in a Braita, Minayin leBirkat Hamazon min haTorah. But why do we know that Birkat Hamazon is from the Torah? Shneimar, as the verse states, V'achalta v'savata v'rachta. We learned that already. So it says here, the phrase V'achalta v'savata v'rachta, those 3 words of the pasuk, Zo Birkat Hamazon, that we learn out for the bracha of Hazan et Hakol. And Hashem Elokecha, Zo Birkat Hamazon. That's the second bracha of Ala Arsan Hamazon. Zo Birkat Zimun. I apologize. Ala Aretz, Zo Birkat Haaretz. Hatova, Zo Bonei Yerushalayim. V'chein hu omer, Hahar Hatov, Hazeh v'Halevanon. Asher natan lach, Zo Hatov v'Hametiv. So saying here, I can learn out all the brachot from that one line. Now I'll go back to you, friends. Is that an asmachta? Or is that Doraita? Am I rereading the pasuk? Is that what the pasuk really means? Do you think the pasuk is really teaching me all four brachot and the bracha of Zimun comes from that verse? What would you say, Mark?
I would say it's an asmachta.
I would say it's an asmachta too. See, right? Come on, Mark. You can't be wrong twice. You see, that's going to be right. See, I would say that's an asmachta. Rebbe Omer, Eino tzarich. It's not necessary to make this explanation. How does he say it? V'chalta v'sabata v'arachta zo bikat hazan. Aval bikat hazimun. I can learn that out from Migadlul Hashem iti. Nafka. I can learn that out. We learned that last time. Learn it out from Migadlul Hashem iti. Praise God with me. Ala aretz zo bikat haaretz. Hatova zo bnei Yerushalayim. V'chenu omer hahar hatov hazeh v'Lebanon. Hatov hametiv b'yavna tiknuha. But they're saying the bracha of hatov hametiv, that was established by who? The rabbis in Yavna after the destruction of Beitar, when they found, and they were not given permission to bury the dead until much after. They went there and they found that they were given permission to bury the dead and that the corpses had not rotted. And they said, we're going to institute a bracha. Hatov, that they're given permission to be buried, and Hametiv, that they hadn't decomposed. But who established that bracha? The rabbis, meaning that it is rabbinic. And we follow that second position of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that not that we make all those drashot on the pasuk, rather the first three brachot we consider on a Torah level, and the last one is rabbinic. Now, having said all of that, there is a question, which is it really Doraita if they came subsequently? Is that the way they were reading the pasuk? If you look over the page, it's a source number 7, same Gemara. Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman explains who authored each beracha. Says the first one, Moshe tiken Yisrael b'kadazan b'sha'ah sheyarad lahem man. At the time that they were having manna from heaven, Moshe instituted the bracha of Hazan et Hakol. Yehoshua tiken lahem b'kat haaretz. Yeshua established the bracha of Birkat haaretz of ala haaretz ala mazon when they entered the land of Israel. David u'Shlomo tiknu bonei Yerushalayim. Okay, David tiken Yisrael hamecha v'Yerushalayim yirecha, or Yisrael hamach v'Yerushalayim yirach. u'Shlomo tiken al habayit hakadol hakadosh shenikra shimcha alav. Okay, hatova b'meitiv b'yavne tiknuha keneged harugei beitar. Okay, that's what I mentioned before. The Amarav Matna, Oto Hayom Shenitnu Harugei Beitar Lekvura, Tiknu Biyavna Hatov Metiv, Ato Shol Hisrichu, Metiv Shenitnu Lekvura. Okay, so exactly what I just said there. The last bracha was because they were given permission to bury and because they had not yet decomposed. But what we're learning from this is, if you're saying it's biblical, then how could David and Shlomo generations later establish it? How could Yehoshua do it? How could Moshe do it? That sounds pseudo-rabbinic or something else. It could be Nevi'im. It doesn't sound like it is Torah. And that is exactly the question of the Rashba. Now, by the way, just want to hold it here, which is, you want to ask yourself, what is the actual conclusion? The actual conclusion is we do consider the first three brachot, Torah, and the last one we consider rabbinic. But the Rashba is going to bring a question here, which is, if Moshe is doing the first bracha, and Yehoshua is doing the second, and David and Shlomo are doing the third, that's a lot of time. Okay? Moshe, while the man is coming down, okay, I could say that's Doraita. Maybe. Yehoshua, it's after the Torah. They're entering the land. You're already you're into the book of the prophets there. Okay? David and Shlomo, that's like a few hundred years later. Doesn't sound to me that that's Doraita. So the Rashba says, Hada Amrina, that which we said, Moshe tiken lahem b'kad hazan, Yehoshua tiken lahem b'kad haaretz, kasheli. This is hard. Rashba, Rav Shimon ben Aderet, a great Sephardic rabbi in Spain. Okay? Baha kaimalan, the samuchle de brachot elu, medoraita ninhu. Didn't we just say on the previous Amud of the Gemara that they are Torah level? And now you're saying that these men of flesh and blood establish them. If men of flesh and blood establish them, then clearly they are not Doraita. So what's the answer? V'yesh lomar. The matba'an, the matbe'a, the formula, who shetav'u lahen. We can add that they established a specific language. And we say that the language they wrote. They were the authors, but the concepts, they're Doraita. Okay? So we're going to say that the concept of needing to do these, that's on the Torah level. But the actual wording, that was established. So we're kind of like the Rashba like wants to get us to this understanding here that these first three brachot, they're biblical. But the exact wording of those brachot, that was done by the Nevi'im, the early prophets, and after the destruction of the temple by Chazal, and that's Hatov V'Hametiv. And that's why, if you have a look at the difference between an Ashkenazic and a Sephardic Birkat Hamazon, at least the first three brachot and most of the fourth, there's very little difference. There's a little bit of Aisolamach Varshtamirach versus Aisolamecha Varayushlamirecha, but it's basically very, very similar. Okay, because.
So what does the Torah mean when it says Uberachta? In other words, are we saying that the concept of these four,
at least three,
or three blessings,
the concept of Hazan, God nourishes everyone, that this is entering the land of Israel, the concept of the Beit HaMikdash, those are concepts in the Torah. Okay, there is a concept of God nourishes everyone. There is a concept that you will live in the land of Israel, and there is a concept that in the place which I will choose, you will build the temple. So those concepts, they're Torah level. Now, the concept of a miracle which happened post Bayit Sheni, okay, I think everyone agrees that is rabbinic. Okay, so that's we're up to. So we must still understand, why is there an obligation to mention Eretz Yisrael, Jerusalem, and the Beit HaMikdash and Birkat Hamazon? What is the connection between them and the food one eats? Which is, again, for all of us who are living here in the diaspora, I mean, people give me a hard time because I'm overly Zioni in my drashot, but shouldn't we say there's more to it, which is, what is the Birkat Hamazon saying? Al haaretz hatova asher natanach, baruch Hashem al haaretz hamazon. Okay, we're constantly mentioning the land. We're constantly talking about Bonei Yerushalayim, build the Jerusalem, build the Beit HaMikdash. Why is that got to do? What does that have to do with Birkat Hamazon? So the Cook writes, and we'll read it in English because Rav Cook's Hebrew is always very difficult. The common thread throughout the Torah is that there is a connection between the general principles, okay, hu kesher haklal el hapratim, to the general detail, from the principles to the details. Skip down. Therefore, first Moshe established the bracha of Hazan when the manna came down for them to help them survive as physical individuals. And then he continues over the page. Then David and Shlomo established Bonei Yerushalayim as it became the time to shape the general spiritual form for the whole nation at its center. And then continues, therefore, it is proper for every Jewish person to know the value of his personal sustenance, that he is placing one stone in the building of the general world that is holier and more exalted, and he is thereby uplifting his soul with the knowledge that he is sitting at a table before Hashem. According to Rav Kook, the goal of Birkat Hamazon is to educate a person to pay attention to the goals of his eating, both the physical and spiritual goals, as well as the personal ones and national ones. Now, this could be a whole class about connecting to Israel and bread and eating and building ourselves up physically by nourishing ourselves, spiritually nourishing ourselves. but we don't have any time. So we're going to jump to how much bread do we need to eat in order to do it. Now, I'll ask you again, for those of you who are discerning and understand the difference between a Torah level and a rabbinic level, if I ask you a question, how much bread do you need to eat? On a Torah level, how much do you need to eat?
As much as to fill you up.
There we go. As much to fill you up. Because what did the verse say? You shall eat and you shall be full, and then you shall bench, which means if you're not full, you don't need to do Birkat Hamazon on a Torah level. Comes the rabbis and say no. The rabbis say what, Devorah?
It's for
A kazayit, or, according to one opinion, or kabetza. Okay, as much as an olive or as much as an egg. Now that level of, I won't say minutia, but that level of detail is clearly rabbinic. As I explained recently, the requirement to hear the shofar is a Torah level requirement. To hear 30 blasts, rabbinic. To hear 101 blasts, minhag. Okay, understanding the different things that we do. So therefore, somebody who doesn't hear shofar and they sleep in, but they hear the last 30 blasts, they don't need to hear any more. But someone who never heard any, they do need to have an additional blowing. There was no requirement for somebody who missed some of the blasts to hear any more if they heard 30. And that is only for men. For women who didn't hear 30, they have taken it upon themselves, and so therefore there is a machloket whether they need to hear it with a beracha or not. Ashkenazim say, since the women took it upon themselves, they should have a beracha. The Sfaradim says women took it upon themselves with an unbinding position, and so therefore we don't make a beracha if it was only women on their own. We would still blow the shofar, but there would be no beracha since there was no, technically they want to hear the shofar, and that's praiseworthy, but there's no need for a beracha to be made. But if so, I often say, is there an Ashkenazic woman here? Yes, there is. You make the bracha and I'll blow the shofar. Okay, because that's how it should be. But if it's only Sephardic women and they want to hear the bracha and they want to hear it, they want to hear the shofar, I wouldn't make the bracha. Now, if I have one man and 50 women, I'll make the bracha because that man has an obligation to hear the shofar. Okay. How much, and why is that? Because it's a time-bound mitzvah, and anything which is time-bound is limited to men only. Women are, again, praiseworthy that women want to hear it, but with the women who took it on, they took it on unbinding by Sephardim, binding by Ashkenazim. Okay, how much bread do I need to have? Says the Gemara in Masechet Brachot, Daf Mem He Amud Aleph, Ad kama mezamnin, how much in order to obligate themselves into a zimun? Ad kazayit, as much as an olive. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ad kabetza, as much as an egg's worth. Accordingly, this Gemara appears to be discussing the amount of bread that 3 individuals must eat in order to obligate them in zimun. Tosafot writes that the discussion applies to Birkat Hamazon as well. So you'll notice, certainly we saw that last week or 2 weeks ago, that's talking about Kama mezamnin, how much for 3 to have a zimun? Doesn't mention Birkat Hamazon. So it says the Tosafot, ad Kama mezamnin, v'hu hadin, and the same law applies, Birkat Hamazon below zimun. And the same rule applies for those who have to do Birkat Hamazon even without the zimun. Ela ributa ashmeinan dafila kazayit mezamnin. But it comes to teach us an additional point that one may make as form of zimun even if one only ate as much as the weight of an olive, okay, which we consider to be about an ounce, and a kabetz are about 2 ounces. How much is that? In old money? No, in European terms, 27 grams is 1 ounce, about 54 grams if you're having 2 ounces, okay? Depends if you're having a kazai or kabetza.
So in restaurants, like you see this in New York.
Mm-hmm. They're going to tell you how much you're going to eat.
No, there's a place to go wash,
mm-hmm.
and there's usually a basket or something with little pieces of
stale bread next to you.
Right. I throw a piece of stale bread in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not kazayit.
No, it's not.
So you're not obligated to do
You would be obligated to wash your hands and make hamotzi,
right.
but that's not enough to do
Birkat
Birkat
Hamazon.
Hamazon. Now, the question is, does it add, we're going to see this, does it add with the rest of the foods that I'm eating?
Yeah, that's,
Are those things which would normally be eaten with bread?
mm,
And these are normally things to be eaten with bread.
mm.
So does it add? We're going to see it. Now, again, ideally, I want to give every person a decent slice of bread with their meal, which weighs an ounce.
Right.
Okay? Even better, 2 ounces. It's not, again, you can get the scales out when it's not Shabbat, see how much a slice of challah weighs,
Sort of curious
and then
now.
figure it out. It's not a Shabbat activity.
Yeah,
But take over, if you're making French bread on Sunday morning, take a slice of bread, see how much it weighs. Well, you know how much a regular slice of bread weighs. You can see roughly what that is. Okay, you're looking at a slice. What? Challah is probably heavier, dense,
Yeah.
more dense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, a regular slice of challah is probably an ounce. If you have 2 slices of bread, it's not a problem for me. Okay, it's not a problem. For sure, the bread's in front of me. Yoink, yoink, yoink. I'm getting it. Says the Rambam. מצוות עשה מן התורה לברך אכילת מזון שנאמר ואכלת ושבעת וברכת לשם אלוקיך ואינו חייב מן התורה אלא אם כן שבע שנאמר ואכלת ושבעת וברכת ומדברי סופרים אכל אפילו כזית מברך אחריו. Harambam follows the position when it's only you need to have a kazayit. And that requirement is only rabbinic. Okay, the Ra'avad, the Ravid. Remember, the Ravid lived in Provence, and his job was to make the Rambam's life a misery. He wrote his glosses there, and Amar Avraham, by the way, it should be there, by the way, Amar Avraham. Yeah, everything was Aleph, Aleph. Amar Avraham, Ein Hadvarim Ketiknein, Ve'ein Mesamchinan Halacha. These statements of the Rambam are not accurate or agreed upon in practice. The Kaimalan, because we've established the Achilat Kazayit or Kabetza Doraitahi. He says that eating even as little as an olive's worth or an egg's worth is biblically considered being full. That's what the Ravid says. Now let's see what the Shulchan Aruch says. Shiur achila levarech aleha Birkat Hamazon bekazayit. Okay, well that's pretty straightforward. He kind of dodges the question of the Ravad, if that's Doraita or Merabbanan. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Hainu midirabbanan, aval midoraita eno chayav levarech Birkat Hamazon ki im keshachal davka shiur sevia. The Mishnah Berurah holds like the Rambam, that when you only eat as much as an egg's worth or an olive's worth, that's only rabbinically. But on a Torah level, you need to be full. The poskim agree as to the length of time in which one must consume a kazayit. So again, you thought it was easy. Rabbi says, okay, I need to eat a kazayit, 1 slice of bread. Maybe it's kabetza, 2 slices of bread. How long? How much time do you have to eat those 2 slices of bread? Here we go. Says the Magen Avraham on top of page 16. Imachal ma'at. You want to eat a little bit. V'chazar v'achal ma'at. And he went back and he ate a little bit more. Im shaha yotem mikadei achilat pras. Nireli dei mitzaref. If he waited so much time, that how long that it would take to eat half a loaf of bread, seems to me that it doesn't combine. He says you've got to eat your 2 slices of bread within a time period. How much is that? You know, they tell you, when does this come up? Because it's easy to eat. It's easy to eat 2 slices of bread. This comes up at Pesach. How quickly do you need to eat the matzah? Now, so this is the funniest thing, which is, again, I'm not making fun of rabbinic shiurim, but when I was a kid, you ate a piece of matzah. Everyone got a piece of matzah. You ate it. No one told you how fast you had to eat it. They just told you, remember to lean to the left. That was it. Now it's like, you've got to eat all this, guy. You've got 4 minutes. Your time starts now. Go.
Marilyn had this experience with a family
Really?
in Israel, and it was
they're
eating
family.
It ruined the whole thing.
right. Well,
They're
they all
devoted.
sticking the matzah in their mouth, and there was 4 little
Chomp,
girls,
chomp, chomp.
and they were all chomping, and
They
then
were-
the little girls just started giggling.
And we all were laughing. So his wife was laughing.
By the
He was
end,
so
and then-
angry.
So the Pri Megadim says if one eats slowly, one will still be obligated on a Torah level if he is full, even if it takes him longer to eat. Now, again, how long is all of this? If you eat a kazayit in the time of kedei achilat pras, the time it takes to eat to eat half a loaf of bread, how long is that? Again, we're going to see it. Maybe he's going to say it's about 9. Is it 8 or 9 minutes? Where is he going to say it? Where does he say this? Yeah, anyway, it doesn't. I don't think it's going to say it here. 3 minutes. What? Wowzers. Have a look here in Vizar Bracha. In order to be obligated in Birkat Hamazon, one must eat the amount of a kazayit of bread within the time of Kedei Achilat Pras, which is 4 minutes. There you go. It was 4 minutes, not 9. Okay. Some write that it's better to be strict and eat it in less than 3, according to the Igrat Moshe. According to the Pri Megadim, if one ate bread of the amount that he was satiated, he's obligated in Birkat Hamazon, even if he ate it in a little. If he ate a little at a time over the span of time of more than Kedei Achilat Pras. Now, again, all within reason. Ideally, it shouldn't be a problem to have 2 slices of bread within 3 minutes. I know it's not a problem for me. Eating the matzah on Pesach, again, if you can, but it shouldn't be one of these getting out the watch to the second and making sure that we do it like that. Mitzvot should be enjoyed. Mitzvot should be done properly. We should be trying to do it as much as we can, but without going crazy. All right. I think that's. I think I cleared that one for you. I don't want to tell you that I'm being lenient. I just think it's. I just think it's common sense that how you eat has to be done as a Ben Adam. You have to do it in a way where you're feeling that you're being respectful to it. It can't just be something which I'm saying, oh no, time's running up. Quick, get it in, Cormac, faster. Like it's got to be done nicely. Okay. Again, I'm not telling you that I'd take all the time in the world, but it's not a stopwatch. Okay. One who is uncertain if he recited Birkat Hamazon. So this happens, not to me, but it happens. What is the halacha if one cannot remember if he said Birkat Hamazon or not? Since the obligation is biblical, it stands to reason in cases of doubt, of safek, one should have to do it again. We have a concept of safek brachot lehakel. That's because they are rabbinic. But if it is a Torah level and it's a safek, I would say that I would need to do it again. So says the Gemara and the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Zeir b'shem Rabbi Yirmiyah, Safek berach al mezona, Safek lo berach, Sech levarech dichtiv, v'achalta v'savata v'rachta. That's the ruling. This is followed by the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch. If one does not remember if he did Birkat Hamazon or not, he has to go back and do it again. Shulchan Aruch. Achal ve'eno yodea im berach Birkat Hamazon im lav, v'levarech mesafek mipnei shehi min haTorah. So because it's a Torah level, you have to do it.
How could you possibly forget?
It's 4 brachot. I'm wondering how you would do it.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean that's Dr. Zucker, but
Well, sometimes it happens to me sometimes.
Get interrupted.
I mean they're kind of. I could understand someone not being sure if he said a bracha before the meal, but after the meal, Birkat Hamazon takes effort.
Okay,
I mean, you know.
Anyway,
I don't
we're
get
all
that.
good. We're good. Okay, turning over the page. The Magen Avraham says the 4th bracha, because the 4th bracha is only rabbinic, do we have to say the 4th bracha? Says the Magen Avraham, you do, because we don't want to mezalzel the bracha. We don't want to downgrade it so people won't respect it. Says the Yakut Yosef, quoting his father, Hacham Avaji Yosef, since the 4th bracha is only rabbinic, Safek brachot lehakel. So if I had to repeat Birkat Hamazon, I would do the first 3 brachot and I would stop. Amen. I'm done. That's it. The obligation of women in Birkat Hamazon. Let's have a look. Nashim, says the Gemara in source number 25. Chayavin betfila uvemezuzah Birkat Hamazon. Women are obligated in all of those things, in saying the Amidah, in putting on the mezuzah, and Birkat Hamazon. Amalei Ravina Larava, Nashim Birkat Hamazon, Doraita Merabbanan. Now, is there requirement rabbinic or Torah level? Says the Gemara, Lamainaf Kamina. What's the practical difference if it's rabbinic or Torah level? Says the Gemara. Says answers. If we say that it is a Torah level, they have the same obligation as men, and therefore a woman could lead Birkat Hamazon if a man did not know how to do it, and I could answer amen to their berachot. Says Amra D'Oraita, Ate D'Oraita, Mafik D'Oraita. What are you going to say? Granted, if you say that their obligation is a Torah one, whose obligations by Torah law can come and fulfill the obligation of others by Torah law. However, if you say Merabbanan, then they have a lesser requirement. If I downgrade it and say they've only got a rabbinic level requirement, then a woman cannot lead Birkat Hamazon. I'm not talking about the Zimun. They could not say the brachot out loud and answer amen. The practice until the early 20th century, or maybe even the mid-20th century, was a Sephardic male says Birkat Hamazon out loud, and everyone answers amen to the brachot. It's not the way that we do it today, where everyone has a birkan. So it's saying here, let's say there's a learned woman. She wants to, not the zimun, but she wants to make the brachot out loud for men. If it's a Torah level, then she has the same obligation as a man, and she could fulfill the obligation of a man. So saying here, that was the question. The Gemara did not actually answer it. Rashi and Tosfot disagree about why women would possibly be obligated only on a rabbinic level. According to Rashi, Eretz Yisrael is the subject of the second bracha Birkat Hamazon, and the division of Eretz Yisrael in the time of Yeshua generally occurred through the males and not the females. So if the men are obligated because they were the ones who got the land, then I could say that the women only have a rabbinic level obligation. So it says here, Rashi, on the land, on the good land which I am giving to you. Who was given the land? The men. The land was not given to women to be divided up. Now, if you're going to ask, oh, wait, Rabbi, what about the daughters of Slavchad? The daughters of Slavchad got land. Sharona would have said that she'd been here. They took their father's portion. As he was among those who left Egypt, but most women did not, and we don't learn out something from a miut. So according to there, I could say the women didn't get it. Says the Tosfot, the time what does it say here? On your Brit that you have sealed on our bodies, that's Brit Milah. Women don't have Brit Milah. And on your Torah that you have taught us. Well, guess what? Nashim litnu lo Brit v'lo b'Torah. Women don't have a Brit, as we know, and don't have an obligation in Talmud Torah. Now, women should learn Torah, but there's no obligation. Ramin and the Kaman, and we said later on, Mi shalo ama Brit v'Torah b'Birkat Hamazon. We said someone who doesn't mention those words, Brit v'Torah, in the second bracha Birkat Hamazon, has not fulfilled their obligation. Hashta kamiboyale, kevan delo matzu lemema Brit v'Torah lo havu ela midrabanan. Or dilma kevan delo shaykh behu have a shapir doraita. How did the kamen myre ba'anashim the shaykhe b'Brit Torah? So the Gemara is now asking that since they cannot mention, women can't mention Brit Torah, is their obligation only rabbinic? Or since these elements are not relevant to them, it is still a Torah law. And that halacha, that without mentioning Brit and Torah, they do not fulfill their obligation, refers only to men for whom Brit and Torah is shayach, is relevant. The Gemara doesn't answer the question, and Rashi and Tosfot are just speaking out in lumdus, as it were. They're speaking it out, but they're not really making a ruling. So how does the Shulchan Aruch rule? Nashim chayavot b'Birkat Hamazon. Women are obligated. The safekhu imhen chayavot midoraita. For women, it's a doubt whether their obligation is a Torah level one. Therefore, umotziot et ha'anashim, and whether they can fulfill the obligation of men, or eino ena midrabanan, or whether maybe they're only obligated on a rabbinic level. Ve'einan motziot ela lemisha ein chiyuvo ela midrabanan. and therefore they can only fulfill those who have a rabbinic level. Who would those be? Children under bar and bar mitzvah. So therefore, what are we learning from here? If I have a man who does not know how to do Birkat Hamazon, but he has a Torah level requirement, and I have a woman who does know how to say Birkat Hamazon, but she's only got a rabbinic level requirement, she cannot fulfill the man's obligation, even if he has no idea what to do. So what should happen in that scenario? The woman would have to say each word, and the man would have to repeat it. The Gemara in Masechet Sukkah, I just learned this with Ruti for her bat mitzvah, says, cursed is the man who needs to have a woman say word for word the Hallel, because it says, it creates a scenario. A woman can say Hallel if there's no man who knows how to do it, but the man has to repeat word for word. Whereas if you have a man who's leading, they just say the last word of each paragraph. And it's saying it's not a good option. Okay, Ruti didn't like it because it says, what does it mean? You're cursed if you can't do, you're cursed if you have to answer the bracha of a woman. It's saying it shouldn't be that a man is so unlearned, he doesn't know how to do Birkat Hamazon. So clearly they're dealing with a time where they didn't have books, and they didn't have Sidurim, and they didn't have Birkonim, and they didn't have Machzorim, but it's saying it should be a situation. So in our scenario where I told you that the minhag in the previous generations was that the man would lead Birkat Hamazon. It wasn't a sexist thing. It was a man has a different obligation. He has a Torah level obligation. The woman is only rabbinic. And so therefore, when you have rabbinic and you have Torah, the person who is Torah obligated cannot be fulfilled through listening to a woman. Only if the person repeats it word for word. And this comes up in lots of different areas of halakha. So let's say, for example, Kiddush. Once a woman has lit candles on Friday night, that's the Torah level of bringing in Shabbat. Saying the Amidah on Friday night, which the men do in synagogue, is only rabbinic. So when they come home, the man still has a Torah level obligation to make Kiddush. The woman only has a rabbinic level, so who can make Kiddush? Only a man, again, in Orthodox. So, and therefore you'd have a situation where a man can make Kiddush, but a woman can't. Almost if the woman knows how and the man doesn't. Same thing. The woman would say it and the man would have to say it word for word. Okay, and you can imagine situations, Rabbi, the husband's out of town and the boys don't know how and the woman knows. Okay, in my house it doesn't happen. When I'm out of town, it's all girls. So it's not a question, but I'm saying if you have this situation where you could imagine there could be a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy who maybe doesn't know how to do it. And what's the answer? Struggle through it. Read the book and struggle through the Kiddush. Or listen to it word for word, because the obligations are different. And so therefore, as much as it's painful to say it, there's a different level of obligation. And so therefore, the woman does not fulfill the obligation of the man. Now, when the obligation is the same, that's when we get into conversations about kavod hatzibur, and we get into more social contractual discussions. But many of it is nothing to do with social contract. It's to do with often the woman's requirement is a lower level. It's rabbinic level, not on a Torah level. And so therefore, it doesn't happen. Okay. It's late. It's 8:50. I think we're going to stop here. And next time we will pick it up on page 142. Have a good evening. Okay. Now you can tell me what you